Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Harris. I have the pleasure and honor of being the mayor of Pleasant Hill. And I'm indeed excited to greet all of you this evening in our first of a number of different engagement opportunities for the public. Now, I'm really excited about this new library. When I ran for city council 15 years ago, one of my goals was to get a new library for Pleasant Hill. So 15 years later, we're here. A vision that I had envisioned and many others had envisioned is going to happen. Libraries are iconic institutions, and two of my favorite quotes about libraries are shown on this particular slide. And I'm sure our new library is going to evoke both of these and many more quotes. So we're going to build a new library, and let's talk a little bit about the process. We have our architecture team here with us. And before we do that, I'm going to just get us to a point of how do we get here? How do we get to the point where we now have a wonderful team that's going to help us build this new library? About 2.5, 3 years ago, when the city council appointed a library task force who had a goal of coming up with a site for our new library, figuring out what kind of features we might want in the new library, and third and probably most important, how we're going to pay for it. We went and visited 15 different libraries in Northern California. We looked at the features that we liked, we looked at features we didn't, we interviewed the staff to find out what worked for them and what didn't. We talked to patrons about what they liked and what they didn't, and brought those ideas back. And then, as far as fundraising, we realized that we couldn't build this library on fundraising alone, that we needed to go to you, the residents of Pleasant Hill, to get your help. We put Measure K on the ballot last year, and you overwhelmingly supported it. 2/3 of you voted in favor of Measure K, which provides $20 million for about $20 million for our new library. We couldn't do it without Measure K. As far as the site is concerned, we explored a variety of sites throughout the city, and we determined that the most appropriate site, the best site, was right across the street from the current library. And it turns out that our good friends at Record Park are going to be purchasing the site where the current library is currently, and they're going to be converting that into playing field. So we have this wonderful opportunity for synergism between the community library and recreation. And you hear from our architecture team, these folks are experts at doing that kind of stuff. So this is where we're going to be building the library, and we're excited about that particular site. It has a wonderful view of Mount Diablo. There's a creek that runs through the east side of it. It's just a terrific location. So now that we had the money to build a library because of Measure K, we saw proposals from different architectural firms to determine what firm we would go with. And then we got 11 proposals from outstanding firms. And we did an extensive review and extensive interviews. And at the end of the process, we selected Bolin, Sawinski, and Jackson, better known as, and easier to say, BCJ. And BCJ has a lot of wonderful programs and a lot of wonderful buildings that they built. On the slide in front of you, in the upper left-hand corner, is the Visitor Center at the Grand Tetons National Park, one of their iconic buildings. To the right of that is the brand new Art Museum at UC Davis. On the lower left is the Newport Beach City Hall and Library Complex, and on the right is the Ballard Library in the city of Seattle. They're also famous for having designed the iconic Apple building in New York. So we've got to the point where we have to go through a timeline. And we're expecting that we're going to take 3 to 4 months to go through the programming part. And that's what we're starting tonight, the programming part. And then after having interaction with the public through town meetings and focus groups, the design team is going to come back and provide us with schematics. Then we go for approval, then we go for construction, then we go for bids, then we go for the grand opening. So please put in your calendars, spring 2021 for the grand opening. Now, I was mentioning that BCJ is an award-winning firm. They won national awards for their innovation. They have a history of developing excellent projects, and they have a really strong team. I've had the privilege of get to know these folks over the last few months, and they're engaging, collaborative, and creative, just the kind of people we want to work with in the city of Pleasant Hill. In addition, they're able to come up with unique and inviting designs that express the community. So what they're going to envision for our library is going to be different than what you might see in a library in another city. They want to make sure that this library reflects Pleasant Hill. And tonight we start the first series of public engagements. We have this town hall meeting, and there are going to be some additional town hall meetings. The next one is going to be in January, on January 22nd. Details are going to be in the Outlook that comes out in January. Now, Measure K will pay for the library, but we realize that we're going to have to look for other resources to help pay for the furnishings, the fixtures, and the equipment. And with that in mind, the Friends of the Library have established a Pleasant Hill Library Foundation. And that foundation is going to be the fundraising source for developing the funds that we need to make sure that the materials inside the library, the books, the computers, the equipment, are up to date and exactly what we want. And as far as that's concerned, I'm putting out a fundraising challenge. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And I am pledging a matching donation up to $100,000. So if we get the this has been a dream of mine for so long, and I'm happy to be able to do this. If we can raise $100,000 from the rest of the community, I will match up to that amount. You'll hear more about the fundraising early next year. We know that if we build the library, they will come. When we build it, they will come. Again, another one of my favorite quotes, without libraries, what are we? We have no past, we have no future. And I want to thank all of you for supporting our library. You're doing it in several ways. You did it when you supported Measure K, and you're doing it by being here tonight. We want to hear from you. We want your involvement. And if you have other friends who want to get involved, there'll be other opportunities along the way for everybody in this community to get involved, whether it be in-person meetings, focus group meetings, town hall meetings, emails. We're setting up a website where people can write to the city and give us suggestions and ideas. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to David Andrini from the firm of BCJ to give us, to introduce us to the rest of the team and to tell us what this evening is going to be. Thank you.
We're so delighted to be here on behalf of Wolski Jackson and the entire consultant team. Just want to say how intrigued we are by this project and excited about it. Our excitement for it has really grown. I mean, we were intrigued about it back when it sort of came on our radar back several months ago. But then as we've gotten to know more and more about the really innovative work that is happening here with the library program, the programs going on at the library right now, all the great background work that the county has done and the city staff and their eagerness, their dedication to this has really been something really amazing to behold. So I think there's a really wonderful opportunity here to do something really special. So we're really excited. We're also really excited about our team. And it takes a lot of people to put together a building. Lots of specialists, lots of hard work from so many individuals. And I don't have them all up here today. Before jumping into design, I know a lot of folks probably came here today. You've been thinking about this for a long time. It's been on your radar for some people going back 15 years, I've heard. Lots of stuff happening up here, and people are very anxious for good reasons to sort of try to get an understanding of what this thing's going to look like. And maybe already have ideas in their heads. But as Mayor Harris so pointed out, we're in a programming phase now. And the thing we're trying to do, interestingly enough, is to actually sort of back away from design for the next few months. And what we really want to achieve here for the next, I'd say from today through February, is really just listening. I mean, we're really here just to soak it all up and to understand who Pleasant Hill is as a community, but this library supports the community. Of course, it's beyond just Pleasant Hill as well. We want to understand the place. We want to understand everything that we need to understand about the project before we start leading into design exercises. I put this collection of slides up here just to kind of demonstrate that in our office, we don't have a look that we try to impart on every design. Our focus is on every project being a reflection, if you will, of its community and its place. And to get there, we first have to really understand the community and the place. So that's where we are. That's what we're embarking on today. And come February, we'll probably, hopefully, keep on schedule. We'll be starting to embark on conceptual design at that point. We're going to have 3 groups of sessions happening. In addition to that, there is a working with the city of Pleasant Hill, with Martin, specifically to make sure that we had a place for people to go to with comments, suggestions, and to understand what's happening. So there'll be a website. Well, it actually is a website, but it's going to be populated a little bit more in the coming days. It's newphlibrary.org, I think. Newphlibrary.org. And you can go to that and you'll see the events coming up. You'll have an opportunity to see, to leave your comments and suggestions and share with us, whatever opinions you feel like are pertinent. But the important thing is we want people to be engaged, or ask your friends to participate. There'll be plenty of opportunities to do so in the coming months. There's been a lot of background work that we're piggybacking on. The county library system went through an extensive strategic plan process about 3 years ago and developed what is today's current strategic plan. And as a part of that process, there were town hall meetings such as this. There's 28 of them, I think. It says on there, 28, yes. Lots of interviews, survey results, and the result of it is just this wealth of knowledge that we're tapping on, and it's kind of sort of laying the groundwork, the foundation, if you will. I like to use this kind of metaphors in the architecture profession, but anyhow, it's sort of a foundation for our work. And coming from that process, this is representative of a county-wide library strategic vision. And it's really a beautiful vision in terms of how it's worded, because it both sort of really captures, it provides some real strength of direction for us, but it's also quite open-ended in terms of how it can be interpreted. Contra Costa County Library is the pulse of our community. Working together, we spark imagination, feel potential, and connect people with ideas of each other. And our task now, in the next few months, is to hone in on this, to leverage this background work, and to find specifically what makes what the Pleasant Hill Community Library is all about. And so with that, I'll bring Margaret up here. And then partly because I'm wearing checkered patterns, and she's got polka dots and stripes on, so
Good evening. I'm going to do a little bit of a logistics. We've got you to 8:30. We'll keep you all night long if you want to stay. We're going to divide the rest of the evening up into 3 parts. We're going to do a presentation that's going to get you outside of thinking about what the library of the 20th century was. How many of you all have heard the term library of the 21st century? That's our future. We love the word 21st century in library land. We're going to do that presentation first. Then we're going to do about 30 minutes of community engagement, where we really want to hear from you what you love and value about Pleasant Hill, what you love and value about the library, and what you can imagine in the future for your community and for your library. And that's going to be a wonderful, lively, constructive, and productive conversation. And then the final part of the activity tonight is going to be an interactive activity where we introduce you all to what we engage in, which is a community-centric, human-centered design process. So we're going to give you a little taste of the process that we're engaging in for the next 3 months that will inform a genuine, authentic, fabulous, specific recipe of components for your public library of the future. How many of you you all here believe that a public library is a gift to the community? Okay, good. How many of you all believe, this is what wakes me up in the morning. This is what keeps me motivated to do the kind of work we do. How many of you all believe that a public library is critical and essential to a healthy, democratic society? Okay, good. We are going in the right direction. How many of you all are here tonight because you want to imagine the possibilities of what a 21st century library can be? Great. All right. Great. Perfect. How many of you all use the library today in a very different way than you used it in the past? One of the things that we're realizing that's a real struggle to our spaces and places is that how many of you all are familiar with the Rose Reading Room as a New York Public Library? Right? So it's beautiful, it's wonderful. We go there and we feel like we're transported into another world. But look at all of those tables, rows and rows. So not only do we use public libraries today for places to learn, but we're using public libraries today to be places to create. And we're using public libraries today to share the skills and talents in our community. And so we're fighting, librarians who are the librarians in the room, we're fighting each and every day with our buildings to perform all of those great services and be that strong community center that you're speaking to, that you enjoy. The biggest transformation today is that we have increased our public programming zillion%. Libraries were not designed for the plethora of public facilitated activities and programs like, who goes to Eco Studio? We have some Eco Studio participants. Like ESL Conversation, like Story Time, like live music, like live animals. So we're thinking about how do we design spaces and places to support the activities that we're doing now, and how can we see into the future in that crystal ball to ensure that our buildings will be adaptable and flexible for our future. How many of you all have learning styles that you did not feel like your conventional educational schooling supported? Libraries can create customized experiences that support a variety of learning styles. How many of you all enjoy learning through play? How many of you all see that the Pleasant Hill Library currently flourishes by being a playful and joyful place? And sometimes the building might not reflect the play and joy that the librarians, right? So we're going to change that, don't worry. Libraries all over the country are providing programs and services and spaces and places that one would never imagine libraries were doing. My favorite one, just to kind of throw it out there right away, is that the Philadelphia Free Public Library has a culinary teaching kitchen. How many of you all gather around food as your basis of community? This is why I believe that the culinary kitchen is going to be a core service in the future of the library. A library in Baltimore offers a museum-like experience for early childhood literacy. In Denmark, of course in Denmark, a library has a dedicated Lego lab. In Washington, D.C., the library has started a fab lab with CNC, laser cutting machines, 3D printers. And what's interesting is that it's in its current library facility, and they just basically hacked the building to create this hacker makerspace. A library in Colorado that's focused on mindfulness has a happiness lab. The whole fourth floor of the Chattanooga Public Library has turned into one giant makerspace with this green screen and equipment for video production. A library in my hometown in Greenville, South Carolina hosts Food Truck Fridays. I know that you all have food trucks in the city. And in Skokie, Illinois, they've dedicated an area for Civics Lab to promote Civics 101. In New York City, instead of a book truck, there's a bike truck. And my friend Sal, to the left, is a librarian in Las Vegas who recognized that the teens were coming in with their earbuds. He recognized that on the Strip, DJs are making millions of dollars a year. And he decided to connect the two to create a DJ STEM training program for his teens that's now transformed into adults wanting to take the classes from Sal. He does public speaking before he even lets the kids touch the equipment. And then finally, a library in Memphis, Tennessee has a state-of-the-art sound recording booth and green screen for their teen community that also has become so popular that youth and adults are using the space. Now, do any of those, are any of those examples that I just gave you, do they sound uncomfortable to you, or do y'all get excited by them? Both? So what I say about when I give these examples is that this is not necessarily going to be right for you in your community. The reason that these programs are successful, and the reason for most of these examples, these are not new buildings. These are renovations in existing facilities where folks have carved out spaces. They're right for the community because they meet a specific need and aspiration of that community. And the folks in the community, the library leaders, the community leaders, have decided that this is a program and service that's going to have an impact for the health and well-being. So one of the reasons that we're here tonight is to hear from you all, what are those unique aspects that we want to capture that are Pleasant Hill? Right? Does that sound more comfortable? And what we ask is, who are we designing this for and why? And so later tonight in the evening, we're going to have an interactive where you all are going to engage in this activity to help us elicit more understanding of that. And we ask, what is the need of the folks in the community that we're designing the library experience for? What are their curiosities? What are their aspirations? And this is the diagram that we'll start to fill out as we develop this recipe that's unique and customized for the Pleasant Hill Library. And if we had been doing this diagram 20 years ago, this would not be the community at the center. What do you think would be at the center of the library that would motivate and inform our design? Books. So this is the significant transformation. And so this experience is a reflection and is supporting the strategic goals of the library. It will also be facilitated by the brand experience and the experience principles. And it will be activated by the technologies, the books, the computers, the special equipment, the skills and talents of the staff, and the partnerships. And we will start to fill in this piece at the bottom, which will be the programmatic recipe of components. So that's what our process will fill out. Why now? Because we at least want to make a building, create a building that reflects and honors all the amazing things that are happening now. Look at this. These are the great programs and activities that Patrick and his staff are conducting and facilitating for you all. And the question that we'll ask throughout the process is, how will the spaces support the activities and programs to create the experiences that will be meaningful and impactful for your community of users? I'm seeing some smiles and some heads nodding. And how do we ensure that when someone goes to get a library card, they feel like they have won the lottery? Because that's what you've won, right? We don't want a sad user, we want a happy user. It's that simple. So one of the things that we've had to do, I had a client once say to me, there are all these brand new libraries being built in Washington, D.C., but when I walk into them, they all look the same. Well, many of us who've been designing libraries for years learned how to design libraries one way and one way only. We started with how many books do you need to store or warehouse, right? You need to make sure that the community meeting room is cut off from the library, although we're designing community centers. And we need to make sure that everyone can be seen all the time because they might misbehave. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need to take all of those into consideration, but what we need to do is think about designing our experience to the highest denominator of use, right? And we also want to design for the multitude of activities and programs that are happening in the library. So we created a concept called Library Studio that we start with that helps us then create a new model and a new process to create the customized recipe of components for your Pleasant Hill Library. And it's really based on designing a space, a library building, that supports the 21st century experiential learning model. Learn, create, share is a cycle that we often talk about. And Library Studio is a concept based in designing a space that is a creative, risk-taking environment where ideas are explored, problems are solved, and passions are uncovered. How many of you all would get excited about that as a basis of concept? Okay, great. So we think about experiences as metaphors. And I don't want, as we go through these library as components, these are not intended yet to be concrete places and spaces, but they're intended for us to have a way to think about the appropriated experience that's going to be right for our recipe. So library is vibrant cafe. This is where I say, my other goal is to make sure that the library is the first choice of our community's third place. So we're not thinking about going to the coffee shop, dare I say the word Starbucks, but we're thinking about going to the library because it evokes an experience that is the best vibrant cafe in our community. We want to create a library that's a hangout, right? To just be with each other in the community. Does this feel like a good place? Especially for our teens, right? Library is social club. So I always talk about, sometimes it's not really about story time. It's about the parents and the caregivers coming together after story time to share those stories that their child might just be, making them pull their hair out. And it's the community that we can gather with that is that support system. Library's break room, the place where we can have quiet retreat. Today we heard about someone who used the library growing up because they had a huge family that was loud and boisterous, and the library was the place where they could find their refuge. Library's classroom. We are a learning facility. What does the classroom look like in the 21st century library? We can never have enough of this. 2 people, 4 people, 6 people, 10 people, 12 people. It's really about parsing it out to create those spaces that feel good for the types of meeting spaces that our community needs. Who doesn't want this? And The maker space is really about the project-based learning and the hands-on learning. And y'all are flourishing in that role. And even having a messy art space is beneficial. Libraries have always been a business incubator. It's one of the strengths, and I think one of the things that's happening now, and I imagine in this community and in the Bay Area, is that brands like WeWork, have y'all heard of WeWork? These business incubator spaces are kind of co-opting what libraries do really well, just by choosing furniture and creating spaces that appeal to the millennials. But we own this. Public libraries own this. And we actually have databases that are better, and we're free. And we need to also ensure that we've got the right copy machines and all the support spaces that can make entrepreneurship flourish. Art galleries. It's not just for showcasing career artists, but it's also showcasing community artists and the skills and talents that exist within us every day. And to have performance spaces that also can showcase those skills and talents, musicians in our midst. And then the pop-up. Pop-ups are all about experimentation. And y'all are already doing pop-up programming. So pop-ups can take any number of forms. And the library is garden, the place where we can have quiet reflection and be with nature. So who here is excited about what the library of the future can be? Great. We also are library is library, which means that none of this displaces the core services that all of us are accustomed to. And I like to use this because, we always go back to Andrew Carnegie. And when we did some work for the New York Public Library, we did the design standards for the Carnegie libraries, and so we drew this diagram. And it really was about designing a place to come in and read and be quiet. But now, what we're challenged with is how do we design an experience that promotes coming in and learning and being heard. And where we mean being heard, that means being empowered to be full participants in our society, to be fully literate so that we can practice democracy. So we don't ask, what do you want in your library? Although we certainly want to hear that. We try to be a little bit more expansive and strategic in conversations that we're going to have tonight. And for you all to really think about, and it's a luxury that we all have here in this room this evening, to think about what is the community that you want to create, and how do you want your library to support that vision that you have for your Pleasant Hill community of the future. It's a responsibility. It's a privilege and a responsibility. How will we honor and reflect the energy of the Pleasant Hill community? How will we create an environment that sparks the imagination of everyone in the community? How will we create an environment that fosters and fuels every single person's potential? And how will we design an environment and experiences that will connect people with ideas and each other?